Rainbow Six Siege content creators don't usually talk about politics, but I do. Sometimes. Hell, some of my most popular content consists of political commentary pieces. Watch a lot of those videos and eventually you'll get an idea of my own political biases. Ultimately, if you were expecting the T-girl hardcore leftist arc from me, I'm afraid to tell some of you that's not what you're gonna get. What you are gonna get is a great video sponsor. Here, the setup has been moved. A family friend is helping me out, and they are very gracious and accommodating for that. But basically, when I was moving my setup around, I didn't have a lot of time to cook anything, and in fact, Cook Unity, the sponsor of this video, and some videos in the past, actually came in pretty clutch, and I'm appreciative of that, because Cook Unity is not like other meal kit services. Cook Unity actually sources local chefs and makes sure that you get actual, genuine meals in front of your mouth and face. And the actual subscription service itself is very flexible. You can choose as little or as many meals as you like, and you can skip and pause whenever you want. I can just hit the button and go back and forth in terms of what suits my lifestyle. Ever since I moved back to the DC area, I have been really all over the shrimp moile coconut curry by Chef Ariti Sempat. This curry has a full-bodied flavor profile that you would expect from a curry, right? What blows me away about Cook Unity every time is just how fresh the food tastes. Go to cookunity.com, GGE50, or click the link in the description and use my code GGE50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals to try out for yourself. Thanks to Cook Unity for sponsoring this video. I am an Obama lib. It's something a lot of people have told me to stop talking about, and an equal amount of people to continue talking about. And I know the reason why. From a business point of view, it's not a good idea to alienate entire sweeping demographics. The reason people usually stay away from this stuff is because people can get angry, combative, oftentimes rude, and generally difficult to speak to. Now, I'm not saying I'm not any of those things, but after a while it becomes obvious where the phrase, no politics or religion at the dinner table, comes from. The problem with online politics, kind of like religion, is that it stands to reason that one person, one set of opinions, one worldview has got to be right. And if one is right, that means all the other ones got to be wrong. Something about that scene from Oppenheimer where the communist lady explains to John Adamheimer that your worldview is how you try to make sense of the universe or whatever. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. The point is, on the internet, everyone who isn't you may be wrong for different reasons, but it's easier to say that everybody else is an idiot, a racist, a fascist, a communist, or any wide range of ists, except for me, the smart one. If everybody thought like me, then the world would be a better place. Now that my opinions have won, the world will be a better place. Conversely, if my opinions lose, the world will be a worse place. I want to clarify that the point of this commentary is not to both sides anything, because if anybody has listened to me personally, like I said, if you've watched any of my political videos, you'll find out that I'm not neutral on a lot of things. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. My absence of neutrality is precisely why people will either tell me to shut up or keep talking. That still gives me a dilemma to face, and the reason that dilemma is there is due to the fact that I have this bizarre ability to get people to listen to me. Not just listen to me, but nod in agreement and bounce opinions off of in kind. I have this weird sorceress ability to get people to not want to bite my head off in a political conversation, even if they disagree with me. And I think that's exactly how Rainbow would have to work if it was real. I'm not stupid. I am a trans woman covering a game that mainly depicts matters of the military, law enforcement, private security, and other John Gun Guy topics. Despite repeated attempts since 2022 to distance itself from allegations of making John Gun Guy woke by dismantling the esports arena plot, adding a significant number of characters that look like something straight out of Rainbow 1998, and a more military action-adventure-inspired narrative theme, I still read comments about how Rainbow went woke and died, and that's the reason it's dead. Rainbow Six Siege is not the E3 trailer that came out almost a decade ago, so it is woke and bad and will never be good ever. Shockingly, There's a similarity here to the Kamala campaign. Democrats and Republicans alike either lamented or lambasted, respectively, how the Democrats just needed to get their heads out of their asses and realize that most people just don't freaking care about woke stuff. And they gotta stop talking about people like me if they ever want to win again. I can't help but laugh whenever that's said in good faith because I don't remember Kamala talking about trans people except once. I don't remember Kamala talking about being the first potential female president. In fact, she reflexively worked around the question one time when she was asked about it. When I look at the Kamala campaign, I don't see a campaign that was trying to convince people they were woke. It was a campaign trying to convince people that they weren't woke. And there's just one problem with that. That's impossible. If somebody thinks you're woke, there's not a single thing you can do that's going to make them think otherwise, even if there's logic involved. You have lost them for good. I know this because I run a gaming channel. Wokeism, or whatever the hell you think that word means conceptually, is a cultural point, not a policy point, not a fact-based point. If you occupy this cultural space, you will think these things are woke and bad. And if you occupy the other cultural space, you will think these things aren't woke and are good. Now, some people lean into this bit and can point out the not so uncommon threads here, but I also understand that this joke I posted a long time ago quite literally did fly over a wide range of people's heads and invited disagreement anyway. I was kind of surprised and shocked at how different, culturally speaking, somebody had to be divided so far from me, to look at this meme and genuinely, in good faith, say, I don't get it. The joke doesn't make sense. The beard guy would not play Fortnite. Where's the joke? I don't understand. So, I kind of wanted to talk about me because I don't really do that much. I wanted to tell a story about my coming out because I think it's relevant to the Siege community in some ways. I'll tell you a story about the support I got from other beardmen like this guy, but let's be clear, that didn't mean that they were voting for Kamala. Just like liberals or leftists, those with relatively conservative opinions don't exist in a monolith, which I know will come as a shocker to many liberals and leftists who watch my content. But that's just the point, right? If conservatives were a monolith, then 2024 wouldn't have happened the way it did. All the dumb commentators I followed who were just as dumb as I was, evidently, would have been right. Donald Trump would have gotten a nail-biting electoral finish by winning the Electoral College and losing the popular vote just like 2016, and all the liberals would have been vindicated that most average Americans would never blobbity freaking blah blah blah, except that's not what happened. He won the popular vote, and that argument is dead. Now liberals like me have to figure out what to do. We were so used to being the cool kids riding the high of the Obama era, and now we're washed. Getting old sucks. To put salt in the wound, now all my queer friends are panicked and scared. So why don't I sound panicked and scared? Why am I not making a lib-pilled video explaining to you how Tom Clancy would balk at the Republican Party of today? Well, I couldn't make that video in good faith, because I'd be lying to you. I'm confident Tom Clancy would have voted for this guy twice. Why isn't this a lib-pilled video explaining how Rainbow is the John Gun guy we need, or whatever? Because I can't make that video in good faith. Take a look at Blackbeard and tell me he doesn't have a Punisher logo on the back of his truck. I'm not going to lie to you about a fake lib renaissance. I will not lib out. If I wanted to lib out, I'd make a video about Space NATO and the new Mass Effect show that got announced. A lib out session right now is not going to help anybody contextualize what just happened, because we just spent a year libbing out and look what happened. It's not going to alleviate anyone's anxiety or provide anybody anything that somebody else didn't already say. So I'll start my story. Relatively recently, I went to a formal dinner my fraternity brothers and I have every year at a local restaurant. It's for homecoming at my small 2,800 undergrad university. The crowd sizes are usually modest, but you will see recurring characters make their cameos that you haven't seen in years. Since I've been in Texas for a year and a half, I hadn't been able to attend the last one. And then I came back. As of recording this video, I am the Alumni Association president for a chapter of the Theta Xi fraternity. When I looked and sounded a little different and went by a different name, I was the active chapter president for 2 terms, which I'm not humble about, if I'm being honest. That position is democratically assigned by a vote. So what the hell happened here? How did I manage to avoid getting profiled by the End Wokeness Twitter account? Don't count it out, it can still happen. Was this all part of a 10-year-long plan for me to infiltrate and wokeify an exclusively male Greek letter organization? Well, no. The reality is, I didn't know I was trans in college, or high school, or middle school. I didn't know I was trans until I moved to Texas, which is admittedly a hell of a place to figure that out. Theta Xi is still something very close and dear to me. It gave me a social network that I didn't have for a really long time. I was an awkward nerd who had a hard time talking to girls and just generally doing manly things in general. And I thought that the kick in the ass I needed was to join the most manly organization I could think of at the time, aside from the military. And then the older I got, the more I realized I had called it completely wrong. But I would never call it more wrong than the dinner I attended a month ago. At the dinner, we let everybody walk in, mingle, grab something from the buffet, as well as a drink or two. And when everybody was settled, the active chapter president came out and gave a speech thanking everybody for supporting the organization at a point of great hardship for the Greek life community. And then I walked up and gave my speech. I had to face a crowd of men who had known me for almost 10 years, who'd seen me dressed up in my best items from the Steve Kornacki collection for those 10 years. I looked up at the crowd of familiar faces, and I took a deep breath. This is what they saw. I started the speech by thanking everybody, and then I said, first, let's address the elephant in the room, which I may or may not have stolen from a similar incident involving a gaming content creator sometime prior. I gave my speech talking about change and what it means for organizations and blah blah blah. And then my speech ended by saying I'd be sipping on a tall glass of Bud Light at the bar. A brother let out a hearty belly laugh from the back of the restaurant in response to that, and the rest followed suit. But it wasn't a laugh of ridicule. I just told a good joke. As we usually did, we did a chant at the end of these formalities. The chant ends with united arms extended upwards with beers in hand, shouting, "Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell, goddammit, go to hell." To which eye contact with one of my best friends, Derek, seemed to invite a perplexed but accepting smile that seemed to say, I guess Gwen's still one of us. I took a picture of the group and I started walking to the bar before briefly stopping to realize the man who had let out the thunderous belly laugh was none other than a guy named Al Bradford, whose name I've changed for the purpose of anonymity. Al was a beard man, an Iraq War veteran, an infantryman with combat experience who had been in the shit of it at the war's violent peak around 2007 to 2008. Al and I locked eyes for a moment, to some degree the pause invited by the fact that I was surprised he'd be here tonight at all. After all, I had come out publicly months prior, and anybody who had had an issue with me, all two of them, had decided not to attend. For a second, I wasn't sure what expression would come to Al's face, but what I got instead was a big, teethy smile through his big, shaggy beard. "Gwen?" he said, with the exact same sharp stantuativeness he had with my old name. I didn't cry that night, but that was the closest I got to it. Unsure of how he'd respond if I were to just hug him like most girls did in these social settings, I did what the old me had always done, extending my right hand for a firm handshake. When his calloused hand met my now slender and tapered fingers, he seemed delighted to find that I could still match the grip strength of previous handshakes. Or at least I guessed that was the case, from a further brightening of his smile, and an extended arm for a hug. This would be my new go-to greeting for the Theta Xi boys, a handshake and hug combination, the hug shake. Al gave me a big bear hug and said, "I love you, man," and reassured me that no matter what, I was a member of the family and everybody here would stick up for me. Other guys closer to Al's friend group also came by to say hi, and he showed us his brand new FU-sized pickup truck, to which I joked, "You know the Earth's still getting hotter, right?" He jokingly replied, "Motherfucker, I'll be dead." It wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who Al Bradford voted for, but that wasn't the point that night. Were there guys who were unhappy about my involvement with the organization despite my identity? Oh, hell yeah. But democratically speaking, it didn't matter. And that's where the buck stopped. The vast majority, a chunk representing the 99% of Theta Xi members, was in that room that night and met me with bear hugs, jokes about Bud Light, and shit, even compliments on my outfit and my makeup, which I assumed was the alcohol speaking. Shortly afterward, my mother told me that a close relative of ours on my late father's side of the family was over the moon about the photos I had posted, and had joyously exclaimed that I looked just like my grandmother. My grandmother has status as close as one could find to Mary without being blasphemous. I was shocked to hear that comparison, because I knew that comparison would not have been made if it had been made merely to entertain the idea of my transness, or to politely avoid the subject of it. That statement was a symbol of embrace from politically and culturally conservative Christians. That weekend was a great celebration, but it also left me with a pain of shame in that I had so awfully miscalculated the sentiment I would get from certain people. Now, I had also miscalculated that the events that took place here would mean a close victory for Kamala Harris 2 weeks later, and that's not what happened. But I'll admit I was pretty shocked to find this photo of Caitlyn Jenner alongside Trump and Elon Musk shortly afterward, too. The truth is, I don't know what's going to happen in my community, or any other queer community, in the next 4 years. But the last Trump term, as far as I can tell, was still even more complicated than some people were willing to give it credit for. The evil mirage of the Supreme Court and its supposed grounds to make life for people like me a nightmare was also the Supreme Court that set the precedent of Bostock versus Clayton County in 2020, which established that matters of gender identity and sexual orientation were important features of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That doesn't seem like a precedent that would have been established during a Trump administration, but that's exactly what happened. If the laser blue eyes red background Twitter guys were supposed to be right, that Supreme Court case would never have happened, and I should have gone to that dinner and been morbidly embarrassed and excommunicated from my organization. I should have been DM'd by conservative friends and fraternity brothers when I shared a video of me drinking a coffee and Jack at the airport bar the next day with a cry about it lib. But that's not what happened. Instead, I got a keep your head up, sister, we got your back. That guy who called me sister has a Second Amendment tattoo. Some of you who are more left-leaning might hear these examples and just be really fucking confused. I don't blame you. But hopefully these examples can tell you that what happened recently is a little bit more complicated than people are willing to give it credit for. And neither Joe Rogan nor Morning Joe have done a good job of compartmentalizing that. I don't know what to do about the raw milk shit. Like, that's just a whole nother thing that's just... fuck. So yeah, raw milk is now a political talking point, but you can control your response to this bizarre sequence of events, however bizarre they are. And I know that people are tired of measuring their responses to the crazy world of today, but the only way you're going to survive is by controlling your responses. The truth is, I very well could have gone into that dinner and the tailgate the day afterward, blue hairing it the fuck up. I could have made an issue every time somebody got a minor detail wrong. My left-leaning queer friends probably think I'm a lunatic for even posting this video at all, or associating with some of these people. But these guys are my family, and maybe there's something you can connect to Rainbow Six too. If Oryx or Blackbeard or Lion had to take orders from a trans woman, how would they respond? Well, one side of the internet would tell you they would valiantly uphold the standards of progressive values, and they would think nothing of it. And the other side of the internet would tell you that they would bastedly, unanimously agree to leave the organization in protest or something, because that would be based. In reality, neither of these stances are accurate assessments of how I think that conversation would go. I know they're not accurate because I already understand that this world wouldn't operate that way. There's a secret third option here. They probably just wouldn't give a shit. Queer people are combat medics, engineers, analysts, firefighters, EMTs. They were that way during Trump Part 1, and they'll be that way during Trump Part 2. Now, I'm not denying that there are going to be certain difficulties associated with it. After all, this is the guy who passed an all-out ban on trans military service, and it stands to reason that that's going to happen again. But if we're sticking to canon, that's not going to affect Osa because she's private military, so, you know? Ultimately, I think the reason I was accepted at that dinner wasn't because of my politics or their politics or anyone's politics. I think they just accepted me because these guys are strong, good men. Strong men are gracious to women and assure them a place of safety in social environments. Strong men aren't bullies. Strong men aren't deceitful and conniving. Strong men keep their opinions to themselves when it's appropriate. My assessment of men and maleness as a teenager came from toxic ideas about what masculinity meant as a conservative. And then when I got older, I quickly found out that I had followed the same rubric of assumptions and mental get-out-of-jail-free cards that people often do as progressives. The point is, Rainbow Six would have to be an organization much like my fraternity if it were to exist in real life. Ash, who is Israeli, would have to keep her mouth shut on certain jobs, depending on the circumstances. And something tells me Maestro and Alibi wouldn't always agree with each other at the bar, especially with some wine in their systems. No, I don't think Tom Clancy would have approved of Rainbow Six Siege's supposed woke-isms. If you were expecting that kind of video here, I'm sorry to not provide that. But the thing is, I don't think that matters, because Tom's books were never really about him. They gave people in the public sector coming in and out of Dulles International Airport a chance to feel like Hollywood stars. And that's worth something. Rainbow Six is a representation of coalition building, diplomacy, and international cooperation on matters of security. And if that's going to work, it's going to have representation of people who are going to have disagreements. That includes grimy, dirty, realistic disagreements. Because the kumbaya, let's all hold hands interpretation of foreign policy only goes so far. If Rainbow Six is to be an accurate window of the world, it has to include everybody. And that includes some opinions that we may not like. All of that is a roundabout way of saying, I think Siege will be fine, because its mission has always been bigger than American politics. Its mission is humanity. And as long as we're sharing this planet, disagreements are inevitable. Rainbow's job, and ours, is to be stronger than our disagreements.